FAFO. I thought the message was pretty clear. If you aid and abet illegal immigration, you thwart a law enforcement operation, you harbor a criminal. If you FA, you will FO. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the Tomi Lahren is Fearless YouTube page at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. The show starts now. So the left has abandoned the Maryland Father Crusade, at least for now, and they found a new hill to die on. And that hill is, drumroll please, activist judges who aid, abet, coddle, comfort, and even house criminal illegal aliens. First up, you have former New Mexico Judge Joel Cano and his wife, who were arrested for allegedly providing housing to a Venezuelan illegal alien and suspected gang member on a property the couple owned. Cano faces one count of tampering with evidence, and his wife was charged with one count of conspiracy to tamper with evidence. Both face up to 20 years in prison if convicted. Not only did they allegedly house Venezuelan illegals, they also reportedly provided at least one known TDA member with firearms. You know, I'm not sure if Mr. and Mrs. Cano have some kind of a weird kink for this type of thing, but playtime is now officially over. And the same goes for this peach out of Wisconsin. Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan was also arrested and charged with obstructing and impeding a proceeding before a department or agency of the United States and concealing an individual to prevent his discovery and arrest. Those are the technical terms, of course. But she is the new face of the resistance, and oh, what a beautiful face it is. So the left insists she was just arrested at random, that she didn't do anything to deserve it. And this is evidence the Trump DOJ will just arrest people willy-nilly that it doesn't like or agree with. This is fascism, they insist. And if you get your news solely from social media morons, you might believe it. But in the event you have, I don't know, half a brain cell or a sliver of intellectual curiosity, let me fill you in on the details the social media brigade and fake stream media has conveniently omitted. So federal agents from ICE, FBI, CBP, and DEA attempted to arrest Mexican national/illegal alien Eduardo Flores Ruiz following his scheduled criminal court appearance before Dugan on April 18th to face 3 misdemeanor battery charges for allegedly beating at least 2 people. Sounds like another great guy and pillar of the community I know. Well, Dugan was apparently pretty pissed off about this. She demanded that the officers proceed to the chief judge's office, and after the hearing ended, she flippin' escorted the illegal alien and his attorney out a restricted jury door. She literally helped a criminal illegal alien accused of beating at least 2 people evade arrest. And that's all it takes for her to become the new martyr for the movement. I mean, can you imagine being so brain dead that you'd go out and protest for her? You know, the message is pretty clear. If you help a violent illegal alien escape, you just may get yourself on the metaphorical Democrat Wheaties box as if you're some kind of hero. Doesn't take much. Joining me now is the Alex Marlow Show host and Breitbart Editor-in-Chief, our good friend Alex Marlow, who I couldn't think of anybody better to break all this down. So over the weekend, obviously the left found, their latest hill, and it was Trump is just arresting judges. And I kept seeing it, Alex, I'm sure you did as well, just all over. Here we go. This is what you voted for. Trump is now just arresting judges. I don't know if they just omitted it because it didn't fit, a preferred narrative, or if they're really that dumb, but this is really what they're going with. Trump is just arresting the judges, Alex. He's just going crazy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because if you actually think that what Trump does has a calculus to it, then when I saw this, I was very excited about it. If you didn't like Trump, immediately you would think, oh, he's just being reckless. He's an authoritarian. He's a fascist. This is what they do in those places. But then I knew that once you dug in the details, you're going to find something unbelievable. Tomi, like you, I did not think we would think that she literally held the door open for illegal aliens to evade arrest. I did not think we'd have something that crystal clear. And we did. And of course, that's why this person was targeted. She was not targeted for political reasons. She was targeted because she used her position of power to help illegal alien criminals evade the law. That should not be acceptable in this country. And if that was broken down a nonpartisan way, you would think that 100% of sentient beings would agree with that.
I wonder, and again, I don't know, because the left, they seem to always be on the side of the assailant rather than the victim. But let's just take out the illegal alien, the ICE part of this. Let's just say you've got a judge who, you know, he's got a defendant in front of them that's accused of beating people and, you know, physically assaulting people, violent. And this judge is like, you know what? I want to help you out, so I'm going to open up the door and just let you run back into the community. I don't know many sane people who would say that's, you know, she was just doing her due diligence. She was just a martyr. She was just fighting for the cause. They literally want people who are violent, criminal aliens to be back out on the streets. And that's really what they're going with now. Like, she was just fighting for his due process. That's really how they're chalking this one up. Yeah. That she was just, you know, Trump wanted to throw this guy in the gulag and she just decided she was going to help him out. And some people, even worse, are likening this to like an Anne Frank situation. I'm stunned.
Yeah. Well, think about the Abrego Garcia case, or as they call him on the left, Abrego Garcia. They have to do the extra emphasis on the Abrego part, make him sound extra Italian or something. I don't know why. They're putting like an Italian accent on it. It just, you'll notice it now that I've said it. But he was clearly involved in human smuggling. We had him in the car with 8 people without luggage driving from Texas to Maryland, and they all registered their home address as his house. So there's no other scenario other than organized international crime where that takes place. That's it. There's the only one. We got that. The Biden administration let him out. So Joe Biden should be impeached for this. You can impeach a former president. We should do that with Biden in this case. But we had that, and that's their champion, is someone who clearly involved in international criminal conspiracy. And we know he was, and still he's their guy. So what does this say, Tommy? Because they're not dumb. They think that they're working on something here. They're laying tracks to never give an inch to Trump. Trump is never correct. Trump is 2 + 2. If Trump says it's 4, it is no longer 4. That is their approach to anything Trump does. So if Trump does, it must be wrong. And they think that if they take this approach, eventually Trump will do something impeachable. They'll be able to ride that to the midterm elections where they will win, and then they actually will impeach him. That's what they're trying to do. They know they don't have to win this one, but Trump has to win every single one of these political battles to avoid impeachment and having his entire presidency or the second half hijacked again. So that's what they're trying for. It's not going to work these first couple times, but they will eventually find something if they look hard enough and Trump is not super, super careful.
Well, that's the problem with all of this, is that we know that this is what they're doing, and they don't really care that he's trying to make this country safer. Right. You know, the polls are going to change on this, but it was just a couple weeks ago that you had I believe it was a CNN poll, not a conservative poll, that said about 56% of Americans wanted all illegal aliens to be deported. So he's still on the right side of this issue, but they're just pulling like whatever they can. The one today, now they're still with the judges that, you know, they want to protect the judges who are letting violent people back out in the community. Now it's like, well, he's deporting citizens with cancer. That's the new one. And again, if you don't look a little bit deeper, you might think that that's what he's doing. He's just showing up at somebody's home. Oh, it's a kid. It's a U.S. citizen. Send them to El Salvador. That's what the fake stream media and the people on Twitter would have you believe. You dig a little deeper, you find out the mother was an illegal alien from Honduras. She took the kids with her because she was deported. And Tom Homan, you know, they're saying that he's so unloving and so, you know, incompassionate about all of this. But he said, listen, just because you have a child in this country who's a U.S. citizen, that doesn't mean that that prevents you from being deported. And often in those situations, the family is going to stay together and they're all going to be deported together. Those kids can come back and live with, you know, an American if they so choose. But the mother wanted to take the kids with her when she was deported. But, you know, they want to find a way to make people believe that this is just the most abhorrent thing possible. And every day we're getting a new stupid headline. And I'm wondering if you think the Trump administration is doing a good enough job of combating all of this.
No, I don't. I think they can message better. I think the Abrego Garcia thing, I mean, the fact that it took a week for people to kind of settle on the argument that I just brought out, that seems like that should have been the first one. And it took a really long time to get there. So, no, the messaging needs to be better. Stephen Miller's amazing at it, but he feels like he's the only guy who's out there who's nailing the messaging. And, you know, we had the same issue with the tariffs, Tommy, which maybe we'll get to. But, you know, Scott Bessent messages perfect and everyone else seems to struggle with it. And it's just one of those things where everyone's got to get coached up to make things smoother. But your point about the cancer is really interesting because it's a forest versus trees issue. And this is that's actually a personal one for me because my wife is a cancer doctor and she worked at a county hospital in LA where she would treat illegal alien cancer patients. And it's one of these things where there is tourism, where people come into the country trying to get cancer treatment from America because we don't turn people away, because we're a deeply empathetic country where people are there and are tired and poor and huddled masses. When they show up, they're going to get cancer treatment. And if they can't pay for it, we work that out later. That is because we're a sympathetic, empathetic people. But that's a trees issue. But if you look at the forest, do we want to encourage that? Do we want to encourage people to come in and get free cancer treatment just because they can get here and get to one of our hospitals? Of course we don't. That doesn't make any sense. But if you isolate the mother who really needs the help and she's already here, okay, we'll treat her. But we want to avoid those scenarios. That's why we want to have a border that makes sense, and we want to have quick, swift deportations of illegal aliens so that we can restore some sanity into our system, which is costing too much money. And of course, we're going to have this messiness to it. But that's why we need to look at the broader principles. We can't just have an open border and infinite amount of money, which we do not have, going towards illegal aliens.
Yeah, we don't have it. You make a great point. Here's another thing that they're really ticked off about today. So I think the White House I think it's a brilliant move. I think it's hilarious, putting the photos of these criminal illegal aliens, alleged criminal illegal aliens. We have the visuals of that, but putting that up everywhere and showing people this is what we've deported. I think it was an excellent use of resources,
nice.
And I think it puts a face to the real crisis here, and it shows what this administration is actually doing. But even then, even when you have these people that have done horrible, egregious, disgusting things, they've raped, they've murdered, they're drug traffickers, you still have the liberal networks that are blurring out their faces because they didn't get due process.
Right.
Do they realize how ridiculous they sound to most of America?
Oh, absolutely. The due process thing is a total hoax because you're not entitled to due process as an illegal alien. They're trying to reset the goalposts and the language. We cannot have due process for 30 million people who are here illegally. That would take literally hundreds of years to go through. We do not have the bandwidth in the courts. So they've just erected this fake, phony principle that is impossible. First of all, Tommy, you and I, we wouldn't want them all to get due process because they're illegal aliens. But even if we wanted to, we can't do it. It's impossible. We don't have a big enough court system to do it. So we can't. So them just establishing this and we're all going on, oh yeah, wow, due process. I guess we're not getting due process. Wait a minute. We skipped the most important thing. That's not real. It's fake. It's a hoax. And most of us fell for it, unfortunately.
So I've said this before, and I have to give credit where credit's due because I never really thought about this in as clear of terms as Jesse Waters put it last week on The Five. But he said, listen, all of these people that are illegal aliens, they didn't want to wait in the line to get into our country. They wanted to skip the line. But now they want to get in line to be deported from this country. They want to be way back in the line. So it's like, but wait, the line wasn't important, but now it's important?
Yeah, it's really well stated. This is one of the great themes is that they will just move their standards because they don't have objective standards that they go off of. They go off of these individual cases, and they'll just change the standard at any given moment in order to make sure that they have the advantage when it comes to a political outcome. So it's perfectly put. I don't have much to add to it because how do you add to that? That's exactly right. They don't want to wait the line to come in, but they absolutely will wait in the longest line possible, maybe hundreds of years if the line is that long for them to leave.
So here's my concern, and I always turn to you two for the deep analysis of this because it's something that really does keep me awake at night. I think that the American people, and the polling showed us this, as I mentioned, I think that the American people, by and large, they voted on it in November, and I think they still support illegal aliens being deported, and especially the criminal illegal aliens. I think that if you ask people, just your everyday folks, no matter where you are outside of maybe the deep blue crazy places, do you want criminal illegal aliens to be deported? And they'll say yes. And even if you say, like, do you think that they should get 10 years in the court system before they're deported? They'll probably say no. My concern is that some of this messaging is going to work on folks where they really do believe that people are just being swooped up who are American citizens or just, good folks, and they're just being sent to El Salvador prisons with no due process, and, they'll never see the light of day again. They're being sent to concentration camps. I worry that at some point there will be Americans who will start growing in numbers who will fall for this and will make midterms difficult for Republicans, will make President Trump's administration and the remainder of it difficult for him to really obtain the objective that we elected him, especially on the immigration issue. Do you have the same concern?
I do. And it's across the board with this administration. I think this administration is much better communicating and messaging than any other prior Republican administration that I've seen. But it's still, they have a lot to deal with the establishment press and with a lot of lazy people who are going for the low-hanging fruit and not necessarily hearing the nuanced arguments. But they have to break through and put forward, like, for example, we've got border crossing down to almost zero. That's an incredible accomplishment. No one ever brings this up, is that people are not trying to come in illegally. It's a fraction of the percent as it was just a few months ago. That should be touted every single day. And it's some stuff like economically. We just learned today, IBM, another $150 billion invest in America. We're reshoring all these countries. Apple just decoupled from China. They're building $500 million worth of stuff in India, which I wish was America. They're still building here too, but they're decoupling from China. These are huge wins, and I don't hear anyone talking about it. It just kind of has to be people like me and you reading the paper and being like, "Oh, wow, that's big. Let's share that with our audience." But it shouldn't be on us. It should be on them. It's their administration, so they should be the ones who are out there every time hammering, these are the big things that are happening. They need to identify the right things and create them in a sort of soundbite form so that they get shared virally, because we're getting a lot of conversation about Abrego Garcia. We're getting a lot of conversation about the stock market being down 10%. We're not getting enough conversation about all those wins, and there are many of them.
Do you think it's an issue of over-explaining or under-explaining?
Oof, great question.
I think sometimes when you over-explain, you get yourself into a problem. I think that sometimes just saying, these are illegal aliens and we're deporting them. These are criminal illegal aliens who have no right to be in our country and we're deporting them. To your point, Stephen Miller does a great job of that. Give them no room. We give you not an inch. But I think that there's a lot of messengers in the Trump administration too. So a lot of folks that want to be putting out the message, and sometimes it's not always cohesive. So especially in terms of the deporting the illegal aliens, do you think that they're explaining too much, or do you think they're explaining too little?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't have a thorough answer at the moment, but I know it is both. It's definitely, if you can't fit it in a soundbite, then it's not ideal. I mean, and that's unfortunate, but it's true for normal voters. Not everyone is going to listen to a 20 or 30-minute interview between me and you, Tommy, where we're going into all the details. A lot of people are they're going to pick it up at the carpool line. Oh, do you hear we deported another murderer? Isn't that amazing? Like, maybe that's it. Like, maybe it's got to be that simple. But then I'm thinking, because I keep thinking about some of the tariff messaging, the Howard Lutnick, who I've never met, but I met him one time briefly. I don't know a ton about him, but he was talking about how we're going to be screwing in screws into an iPhone and then building robots to screw in the screws. And it's like, whoa, I need a little more than that. Like, that's not really convincing me in terms of making me get on board with the tariffs. So I think it can be both. And I think that that's the puzzle that we have, because there's so much positive that's happening. And still the newspapers seem to get dominated by negative stuff and negative spin. Like the Abrego Garcia thing, that should have been just a stone cold victory for Trump, and it hasn't been.
And the whole thing of another narrative that they're really pushing is like, he defied the Supreme Court. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because he was ordered to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. But if he's an El Salvadoran citizen. So if they don't want to send him back, we can facilitate it, as Pam Bondi said, like we can provide the plane if they want to send him back. But if they don't, then, that's us facilitating it. But again, the narrative that they're running with is that he's now defying all the judges. He's defying the Supreme Court. He's just reckless and does whatever he wants. He thinks he's a king. Have they done a good enough job of explaining that point?
No, I don't think so. And I think that there's another one where the Maryland man narrative had taken hold by the time people realized he was an El Salvadorian. And it was the due process narrative had taken hold before we realized that he was probably beat his wife and clearly was involved in human smuggling. So, so that's a miss. But, I think conscientious people pay attention, and they will support them as they hold the line. And Trump's held the line on this, which is good, I think. So there's victories out there. It's not a total black and white thing, but it would be nice if there was a little more cohesion and people were on it a little faster in terms of getting normal people, the arguments to arm themselves when they're debating these things with friends and family.
Yeah, simplifying it would be great for people to be able to just rapid fire off correct people.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who's doing a horrible job, in my opinion, of trying to find their message, and that's just the Democrat Party in general. They keep coming up with these little shticks, and each one more embarrassing than the last. Well, yesterday they did the I call it the Misfit live stream. Like when they were sitting out on the steps, I was like, is this a Run DMC album cover? What in the hell am I looking at? But they thought that what they were really doing is building like a coalition. Let's take a look at just one clip. We can't stomach much of it, but let's try.
First of all, my favorite Muslim poet was a man named Muhammad Ali.
Oh,
and
the greatest.
That great poem, 2 words, me, we.
Woo!
But it actually reflects an ideal within Islam of the oneness of humanity.
Absolutely.
That there may be different faiths.
Sure.
But there's a oneness in humanity.
Yeah.
What you do to another, you do to me.
That's right.
That's a very big part of the faith, yes?
It is. Even in Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's last farewell address, he mentioned that.
I mean, what's going on there?
I think Cory Booker is a plant. I think we created him and just so he could give us content. It's just, the guy he can't say anything where he doesn't sound like a total idiot. And I think he's highly educated. So I'm pretty convinced this is just some sort of a Borat routine with him. All you need to know is that 25-hour speech he gave, which had no point. No one remembers one line from it. No one remembers why he was doing it. All we know is he was pissing his pants for 25 hours in a diaper or something. And it was like, that's it. Like, we don't know anything else about it. Like, why was he doing that? No one knows. And that was all you need to know about the guy. He is just he's a ultimate narcissist, like anyone who thinks they should be president. He has no intellectual firepower. He has nothing to say. He doesn't have a single original thought. And if his favorite poem is 2 words and written by a boxer, I mean, how could you beat that? You can't beat it. You really can't.
They're all just trying to be cool. And this is in their mind, this is what makes them cool. And this is what helps them relate to the young kids is if they sit out here, we're just going to sit out here and we're just going to freestyle a live stream like we're on Twitch or something. Cause the young people, they like that stuff, but it just comes off completely disingenuous, corny, phony, hard to watch. And I still can't figure this out. And I'm not even because I'm a conservative, a Trump supporter, all this stuff. I couldn't tell you, Alex, and maybe you can tell me. I don't know what the Democrat Party stands for right now at all. I know that they don't want us to deport illegal aliens at all. Okay, I know that they don't want tariffs. They don't want for us to renegotiate any trade deals. Okay.
Yes.
They don't want peace between Russia and Ukraine. They want us to just fund that in perpetuity.
That's right.
They don't want us to intervene with Iran getting a nuclear weapon or to even really negotiate because apparently Trump's doing that wrong too, the diplomatic approach. They don't like that. So I'm not really sure, though, what they're saying in terms of what they want besides just we don't want Trump to do anything. So then I guess you want the status quo.
Exactly. And what's the status quo when it comes to trade? It's Chinese sweatshops. So it's that's another one where I'd like for them to defend that, like admit that you do like that the arrangement now is we buy stuff from Chinese sweatshops. You're comfortable with that. You would like for that to continue. I'd like to challenge them with that. I mean, maybe one day I'll get to, but they know they need to go in a different direction because their approval is lower than Trump. And you'll hear a lot this week with the 100 days coming up that Trump's approval is very low. I don't know if I trust that. And I think a lot of it, there's going to be a lot of I think it's going to go up when people actually see what Trump is truly up to over time. But just remember, the Democrats' approval is 10, 12, 15% lower than whatever they're saying is about Trump. So they know the party's brand is shot. David Hogg is not going to single-handedly, as charismatic and as brilliant as he is, Tommy, I don't think he's going to single-handedly get the party back on the right track. So what are they going to do? And they honestly can't decide because they don't have any principles, to your point, where they can make a good pivot because none of them are backed up by anything. They can't even decide if they like woke still. I'm sure you're aware of all the dark woke stuff that they're debating is what maybe we need like a tougher version of woke where we are stronger in our insistence on all the DEI nonsense that everyone's rejected. So they can't decide if they need to do more woke or if they need to start being moderate. But how can they be moderate? Because all their donors and the base that provides their energy are not moderate people. They're socialists and communists and Marxists. That's who they are. So they're completely in the wilderness and they don't have any charismatic people who have any sense of leadership that can bring them back at this point. That gives us a lot of daylight to get a lot of positive stuff done, I think.
I also don't think that the Trump administration should be too concerned right now with approval ratings.
I agree.
He knows that people hate him, and they're just going to hate him when they wake up in the morning, regardless of what he does. They're going to hate him. So I think they should not preoccupy themselves with the approval ratings at this point. He's not running for re-election. Yes, we've got midterms, but even so, like, midterms are still, we've got time. Right now, I think just stick to the program and stick to doing what you know you have to do. Don't back down on deportations. Don't back down on the tariffs. Just keep going full steam ahead, and because you can't stop halfway. I think that's the worst thing that they could do, is get worried about the approval ratings and stop halfway. I think they just need to go all the way. And if they believe in what they're doing, just stick with that and let it play out as it will. What advice would you give them in terms of watching the polls and the approval ratings?
Yeah, I didn't have to give them any. I've spent enough time with President Trump recently to know I don't think he cares. I think he knows that he's got a clear vision. He's been thinking about doing the tariffs for 30 years. I think he thinks they're working and they're going to work. So I don't think he's insecure. The issue is the people who are in his cabinet who are taxed with messaging, I don't think are always true believers in the process. And that's why I feel like this has got to be why we keep coming back to this whole show has been about messaging and how the messaging needs to improve. I think it's really important that they get on top of that stuff, because I think the victories that the tariffs are giving us, for example, with the reshoring, with the new investments from pharmaceutical companies and tech companies into this country, moving away from China, are massive. The other thing is that he can't explain some of the reasons why we're moving on the tariffs now are clearly because of China's weakness and vulnerability. Their economy got hammered during the coronavirus. Xi Jinping is not popular among young people. They're not having children, and they are not opulent and wealthy for the vast majority of the country. And so I think that's where Trump sees his vulnerability for China. But he can't say that, because that runs the risk of really ticking off China, because they're a culture that really needs respect, or else they're not going to do business with you. So he has to act like Xi Jinping is a really great guy publicly, and he's never going to waver from that. He's too smart to divert from that. But that means no one in his administration can say we got China right where we want them. Which would be reassuring and might help in the polls, but it would end up ruining the negotiation. So this is where I have total faith in President Trump on this. So the good news is I don't think I have to give him advice, but my advice is the same as yours. Hold the line.
Hold the line, get your messaging clear and concise, and hopefully from just a couple dedicated messengers, because when everybody is going on cable news and saying different things, that's where it starts getting messy and muddy.
But just in case, can we try a little beat poetry on the steps of the Supreme Court or something? Just,
can you imagine if Republicans did that? It'd be so embarrassing. I just can't imagine anybody thinking that's what they're going to do. I mean, pretty soon they're going to start handing out the PlayStations. I don't know. I do want to talk about this in the couple minutes that I have with you, because I thought your post on this was informative, and I think it's been buried. Shock. But that plane crash, that DC plane crash that happened, I believe, in early February, finally coming out and saying, okay, yeah, it was a woman who may have ignored some commands. I was really hesitant when it first happened to be one of the folks on the right that was like, DEI, DEI, because I thought that was reckless. But now this comes out, it's kind of buried down in there. It was a she. They probably wish it was a they, them. But what do you make of this? Do you think that this is getting the attention that maybe it needs to get here?
No, I don't know if it has. It's interesting because it doesn't always make for the best TV or podcasting, Tommy. But I have the exact same take as you. I had a feeling it was a DEI situation, but I did not overstate it at Breitbart or on my platforms because it's one of these ones where you really don't want to be wrong. And if you're right, you feel like people catch up to it. But I do think it's important. I think people are starting to get the picture that we need to move back towards a meritocratic society where we're pursuing excellence and not diversity. The diversity is very boring. It doesn't help anyone. And we need to start pursuing, if we want to be an excellent nation, we have to prioritize excellence over this diversity. And I don't think anyone who's paying attention is shocked that there is probably a DEI component to this. It seemed very logical because the mistake seemed inexplicable. It just seemed like the nature of the crash was something that was so foreign to what we were accustomed to. But the scary part is, are we going to be able to rectify this and to be able to set things straight and reestablish excellence as the governing principle with these high stakes jobs where people could lose their lives? Can we do it in an expeditious way, in a way that's fast enough to avoid any other mistakes like this in the future? And do we have the guts, when we feel like someone slipped through the cracks and is not qualified for a job they currently have, for people to be able to blow the whistle and to be able to say, hey, I don't think this person should be in this role because people could really get hurt. And that's going to be very tough to do. And I wouldn't be shocked if we had another disaster or two like this before we're able to course correct.
Yeah, I think, again, on the messaging side of this, I think that the messaging has been haphazard on DEI in general from the right. It's not, hey, we don't want diversity, because that's what a lot of folks, when they make fun of, and I understand sometimes it's just good fun. You say snarky things like, I wish my pilot was, an older man, that's what makes me feel comfortable. Some people say it because it's a funny thing to say. But I think that the right has really messed up on the DEI conversation. We want diversity. We want people to have a shot. We don't want people to be looked down upon because they're in a traditionally marginalized category. We want those people to excel based on their merit and based on the standards that they meet. And then we applaud them just like they're anybody else of any color, any gender, any identity. We applaud them for making it and being able to achieve those benchmarks. But the right, unfortunately, has just been like, no, we just need to stop giving jobs to everybody who's in a marginalized class. Everything's DEI. It's not. Right. They need to just say, we want to eliminate all this special treatment quota, this, that, because we want to eliminate anybody looking down on anybody based on their identity. I don't want to look at someone and be like, oh, well, my plane's going to crash now because it's a female. That's not what it is. And I think that we've gotten it wrong, at least from the messaging perspective.
Yeah, and I grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of, because it was in West Los Angeles and 20, 30 years ago, there was a lot of beginning of the promotion of people for DEI reasons, but there was also huge promotion for the sort of Nepo baby phenomenon, where there were people who came from really affluent white households that could pay their kids way to get an advantage. That's not fair either. So it's like, it's not really what we want is merit. And we want to reestablish that. But we also, I always thought diversity is great. Theoretically, I live in a very diverse neighborhood, but it's a diverse place where people don't talk about it all the time. It's sort of effortlessly diverse. That's the ideal. It's not forced diversity. It's diversity that takes place naturally. I think the world's a much more boring place when it's all homogenous, personally. But when you're elevating people for career status, having objective standards is great. And that's what we want. It's so simple. We had it and we gave it up for some reason. Let's just go back to that.
We know why we gave it up, because 2020, because George Floyd. And so all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's when everything flipped. And it's like, nope, now we've got to go balls to the wall and all this stuff. And it was dumb. I like what you said, just effortlessly diverse, organically diverse. And in closing, I'd like to see more diversity in some of these resistance protests, because when I look at them, they look like all pasty white they-thems who have a scowl on their face, who are slightly overweight and hate their lives.
The overweight part too. It's true. I've been noticing this too. It's the overweight white kind of boomer aging Gen X, like those. That's the backbone of these protests.
I like more diversity. I think we need to get some more diversity in these protests. Alex, thank you as always for joining me. I always appreciate your take, and I hope everyone will check you out. You do a fantastic show, really getting into the depths of a lot of this stuff. So the Alex Marlow Show, and of course Breitbart. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks,
today.
Tommy. Really kind of you, and I love doing your show as well.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. All right, folks. A radical judge out of Governor Jazz Hands, Minnesota, requires prosecutors to consider racial identity when handing out plea deals. And I have some final thoughts. The left loves their radical activist judges, and one of their rising stars is this woman, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, out of Minnesota, who not only declined to criminally prosecute the Tesla terrorist caught keying several Tesla vehicles, oh, there he is, but now she's come up with this brainchild. Starting today, prosecutors in the county will be required to consider a defendant's race when offering a plea deal. If that sounds racist and illegal and unconstitutional to you, it's because it for damn sure is. But still, Moriarty's new policy states that plea deals should consider the whole person. which I guess means race and age as a part of the overall analysis, because racial disparities harm the community and have a negative impact on community safety. So basically what she's saying is certain racial groups should get better deals to ensure fairness. Welcome to the twisted and distorted liberal mind, folks. Want to know why people don't trust the judicial system? Well, look no further. The left is absolutely obsessed with race. They can't see anything beyond it. It impacts every aspect of what they do and how they feel. Crawling all over this country, you have these activist judges injecting their own liberal derangement into everything they do, and it really makes you wonder if they give a crap at all about victims, about decent Americans, about the communities and country they're supposed to serve. We are facing a constitutional crisis, all right, but it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes of this show on Outkick.com and Fox Nation. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.